Question everything. Assume nothing. Take nothing for granted. That's a skeptic's motto, isn't it? But does anybody really live by that golden rule? I don't think so. So are we therefore to assume that there are no skeptics? Of course not. Now you might say, well, hang on a second, I am a skeptic, I live by these rules. But do you really? We all take an awful lot of things for granted, all the time. We all live our lives based on lots and lots of assumptions, all the time. If we didn't, we couldn't basically live. We would be the sort of person who would starve to death at a banquet, because first of all, they can never be sure whether what they saw before them was real or just a figment of the imagination, and then they could constantly worry about whether the food had been tampered with, whether there was anything wrong with the food, whether there was poison in it, whether it was spoiled, whether it was infectious or what not. You would never be certain about anything, and you'd, like I said, starve to death at a banquet. People don't live like that. But yet, of course, people can clearly be pointed out that are skeptical in nature, and other people who are the sort of people who blindly trust. So where do you actually lay the distinction? I think it becomes apparent when you're dealing with issues that become salient to that person. When they're looking at something and they start getting interested in it, are starting to get fascinated by it, or if it becomes actually important to them for whatever reason. When they look at a question or an issue, it becomes something that they are focused on, and how do they respond to it then? That's what separates the skeptics from the non-skeptics, so to speak. If they look at such things and they say, I better take a step back, look at all the alternative possibilities that could explain what I'm looking at, eliminate the ones that clearly don't make sense, so I'm left with the ones that do fit the data, so that I can move forward from there. That's a skeptic's attitude. The attitude that you would just accept anybody's authority. If somebody says authoritatively enough that this, that or the other is the case, you'll blindly accept it, then you're clearly not a skeptic. So then if we look at the question, can a theist be a skeptic? You might understand why my answer would have to be yes. Because in the end, an awful lot of theists are not people who have been convinced by arguments to be believers in a deity. These are just people who have been brought up in a religious environment in which the belief in a god, where the existence of a god or whatever, was taken for granted. And for those people, it's quite possible that the whole question of the existence of their god has never become salient to them, has never become an issue that they're really interested in, that has come to the forefront of their mind, that they have really concerned themselves with, or that has even actually become important to them. They just are, say, Catholics because, well, that's the way they were brought up. They don't know any better, and they don't care about it. Well, as long as they're in that state, then their belief in a God has no bearing on the fact whether they are skeptics or not. If it ever becomes an important issue to them, then you'll see how they respond to the question. And that's what will tell you whether they are skeptics or not. But in the meantime, you can look at how they respond to other situations that do become salient to them. So if they are confronted with a question and they have to decide whether, what the case is in a particular situation, and they start displaying this attitude of like, okay, let's see what all the different possibilities are, let's eliminate the ones that don't make sense, blah de blah de blah, you're dealing with a skeptic. And whether they are a theist or not, in that sense, is completely irrelevant. And I hope that explains why my answer to the question, can a theist be a skeptic, has to be a resounding yes.